This is the No Stroke Podcast with your co-hosts David Dansereau and Michael Garrow, helping you to support and thrive in life after stroke. Their podcast is designed for educational and community support purposes only and should not replace medical treatment and guidance of your own health professional team.
Welcome to episode 89 of the No Stroke Podcast. My name's Dave Dansereau. I'm here with my co-host, Mike Garrow. Mike, it's been quite a while.
Yeah. Happy 2026. It's been, I think our last episode came out, November?
I think we released it, the end of October, November. And so we're back forgetting how morning recordings, if we're going to put this up, I got a strip of sunlight going down the middle of my face here in studio. But there we go. Adjust things a little bit. It's, if we're going to start in the news like we usually start, and we're going to do a kind of a recap of where we've been, what we've been doing, and what's next, and this hopefully a shorter episode, we can't talk in the news without this has been weighing on me. It's been weighing on a lot of folks, but what's been happening in the world around us, right? And Mike, certainly what's been happening in Minneapolis. You can't turn on the news without seeing more chaos, but I feel like I have to at least acknowledge the recent deaths of Alex Preddy and Nicole Good for just kind of standing up and trying to do something that I think all of us think that we should be maybe doing more. But they both were just they made the news, but when you look and you see there have been a lot of other killings, and there's been we all kind of just sit passively, and I don't know where you turn for your news, and I'm not trying to turn this political, but we do have a voice in the stroke community, and we can't just acknowledge that this hasn't been a thing that's been weighing. I know it's been weighing on my patients. I know some of them have been stripped of health care, and depending on where you're getting your media outlet and news, you're maybe hearing a little bit more, or maybe you're just tuning it out. But I think yesterday in particular, recording on Saturday when Don Lemon got arrested, and media outlets that I listen to reported, but it doesn't get a lot of attention, but it affects a lot of people, and it affects a lot of people's mental health. So I just want to say I feel for the families, the loss, but I know our community has to be feeling a little bit of this pain.
Yeah, no doubt. And I don't think we could have come out here after the break that it's been and not kind of started with this, like you're saying. And, I think the biggest thing from this, it's just, there is a way that, you could just not turn on the news and kind of just go in the dark and, pretend, not to say pretend like it's not happening, but really just avoid it. But I think there is a part of everyone that needs to be educated on what's happening. Right. And, everyone needs to be aware, and it's dark times here, but I think, as this weighs on so many people as it should, as a survivor or caregiver, it's almost, now even more important time to really be tuned into your kind of own mental wellness, your self-care, and really trying to take time to kind of decompress. And, there's obviously so many stresses externally going on in the world, and just the unknown and the chaos, right? But, then add that into being a survivor or caregiver, and those own, the stresses that kind of mount on individuals dealing with that pressure as well. It could be, a lot, so I think, as, we're here today, if you're taking a listen, no matter when it is, just kind of take a moment here. Let's just kind of unwind and, really, really make time in your day to decompress, make time to, be aware of what's happening, but also, tune into you and make sure your mental is doing all right. Because if you just let it keep on keeping on, right, it's not easy.
Yeah. And, that's well said. And, now that I've probably officially been classified as an insurrectionist for just bringing that up, I just feel like, what do you want to talk about next? But I think the purpose of this episode is to regroup and recognize that we've been away from the mics for a while. We've both been busy, but, like you said, finding avenues and outlets to be able to kind of channel some of that negativity that we're forced with. You always have the option to tune it out and turn it off, but I think we can't ignore the signs and the things that we see around and how it affects everyone's mental health and stress levels. And
No.
it's like I personally like turned it into like, whenever I like have problems, like I go and run, all right. And we're in a foot of snow now, so that part's a little bit difficult. But like I always have to have a challenge, and I'll try to turn to writing. That's therapeutic for me for whatever it is. And I know your community now and the things you're fostering with your business side is probably maybe it provides a forum for people to talk too, and maybe
Yeah.
that's what we need to we have more in common than the media will tell us that's trying to divide or decide depending on who you listen to. But a rough transition back to stroke, but I really feel like it was important. And what do you feel? Do you see that around you in your workspaces, or do you see that, is it, how are you feeling? Is it weighing on you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think kind of going back to like, finding your space, whether it's, running or writing, like, I think we've seen a lot of people, using, the sauna. And if you're just tuning in, that's a business
Yeah.
my wife and I just started here a couple months ago, but we've created a kind of sauna club in New Haven where we've, now introduced, some members into the space. And yeah, I think it is becoming, a community where, those like conversations could happen, but also really it's like a place to decompress, and, we have people coming in who just need that, hour of, all right, let me chill out. Let me warm up because it's cold as hell, but
Yeah.
let me chill out here, and I encourage everybody, like, just find that thing that helps you.
Hmm.
We've talked a lot about kind of the mental health impacts of stroke, that it causes both for survivors and caregivers, and encourage people, meditation, yoga, like whatever it is, like find that thing for you, because this is a time that, having that is very important.
Yep.
Everyone needs that, and I think, as we look for, our way to kind of get back into this, not to say get back, but, yeah, get back onto the mic. I think this has always been a very therapeutic thing for us, David. Like we enjoy our time together. We,
Yeah.
BS, have fun, but, being able to kind of get behind the mic and have these important conversations, even if it's a couple hundred listeners, but, I
Yeah.
think it's important for us to continue the conversation.
Yeah, and it's cool you recognize that, because if you remember back to our beginnings, we started in the middle of a pandemic, and when
Yeah.
we were like, we got to do something, and we were just connecting via Zoom, and we were talking, and then next thing you know, we had this online Next Step Forward program. It was just a forum for like everyone in the U.S., and you were over in Ireland at the time, but we had like this cool group of folks that were just following. And we started like, we can't solve this. We don't know what's next, but talking and what you just described and what you're doing with your business model is just bringing community together. We started, and the next step forward, which is like, okay, we're going to start with taking a breath and breathing and just regrouping and talking. I think that's, some almost 90 episodes later now, but what turned out as that mission originally, the pandemic, then like podcasting was a way and still is a way to kind of connect this community. And I hope that, it lives on. So let's talk now, like what's next. And maybe, I'll start with a question. When you were playing in your basketball days, did you ever shoot 100% during a game? Was there ever a game like Mike Garrow just nailed everything 100? Because we're going after 100, right? And then maybe we'll go 100 plus because we want the A plus. But
Yeah, we're chasing 100 episodes. No, I didn't. Never shot 100%.
never
But
shot
I would say
close.
that's the difference, right? Like, I don't think we're looking for like 100% is like 100%, right? Is perfection, right? I don't think anybody in this world is perfect. Like maybe everyone has their own definition of it.
Yeah.
But I think for us, it's just like a milestone that we're chasing, right? And I think, asking, like reframing that question of like, hey, Mike, did you ever have a milestone? I want to score, 30 points, or I want to, win 20 games this year. Like, yeah, like I think having a milestone and a target that you're chasing is important. And, 100 is a pretty exciting number that I think we should be proud to be close to hitting. I think most podcasts don't make it past 3 episodes or something.
Yeah,
right?
the stats. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up because I saw something like 80% of podcasts never get 10 episodes.
Yeah.
So 100. Let's pat ourselves on the back right now.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah. I
pat,
mean,
but-
we're not there yet, but we definitely have a
Well,
plan, and I think it's achievable this year. But yeah, I mean, we had the cadence for a while, and I think, just life gets busy. We obviously want to continue to be a voice and continue to have these important conversations. But at the end of the day, like it is something that we're doing between our day jobs and our side jobs, and advisories positions, and consulting. So we're we want to continue this, and I think as we look towards that 100th episode, I think we have a great lineup of guests that we've kind of thought through, and then you and I connected over the holidays, and we said, all right, let's put together a list of some of the folks that we're still hoping to bring on. A few of those names have been a little challenging to try to reach, but I think we have a great opportunity to kind of curate a list of past guests, but also some of those folks that we are trying to still bring into the conversation and get us to 100.
And if anyone feels like we missed you, like, hey, what about me? Like, I'll you okay if I just drop a couple of the names that we have confirmed that are going to be rejoining us? So Mike Studer will be joining us. Mike, he's had a bit of a health challenge. He came on the show talking about neuroplasticity. For those who haven't listened to Mike's episode, he's a fantastic PT with a focus on stroke rehab. Mike's going to come back on and talk about his book and also the recent health challenge he had and how he turned it into sort of his superpower in educating folks. Carolyn Goggin, who's the voice of the No Stroke podcast, who is now a proud new mom, along with Travis. She's been on the show a couple of times, and we're going to regroup with her probably towards the end because Carolyn gave us our first chance. She believed in us very early on. It was actually our first guest of the show. And you mentioned we're going to try to get Pam Duncan back on. Is that too early to say that, or
No. Yeah,
maybe now it isn't?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Pam, who gave the nice analogy of, when you leave the hospital, feels like you're falling off the edge of the cliff. And she's continuing to do, her God's work and really trying to push the needle before she, hangs things up here. But yeah, Pam will be another great guest. And we have a new guest, Dr. Ram Gordon, his episode will be coming out as our next episode. And yeah, I think, we'd also like to do a recap with the ones closest to us, so thinking about bringing, your wife, Lisa, on the podcast, and my wife, Megan, maybe my mom, my mother-in-law, and just, kind of share with those closest to us in an episode as well.
Yeah, it's been a journey. And you may be pulling some folks in from ASA this year, ISC. Do you want to mention that and kind of give us an update of what that is from the sort of the caregiver and survivor perspective?
Yeah. So, I've been, fortunate for this, my second term, I believe, as the, American Stroke Association Advisory Committee. So, since we started, and I know this was a big point that you and I have talked about for so long, is a lack of, survivor and lived voice representative at ISC. And we have also looked at what they're doing in Europe, right? Where they have this specific Life After Stroke conference, and, they're bringing in survivor voices. Now, in the International Stroke Conference is a much different conference. It's very science-based, late breaking research, but, there's just no forum to have the lived experience spoken to, right? I think the first conference I went to was with Senator Lujan, gave the closing speech, right?
Mhm.
And that was brilliant. And he gave a very touching story, and we were honored to be able to bring him onto our show. But he's a state senator, you know what I mean? And he's not the voice of, let me be careful with my word, but he's in a unique position. for the way his treatment was able to get taken care of, just the connections, the attention. Again, he's a state senator, and reverse that for the ASA. ASA is looking for the Michael J. Fox first row, right? Like that's what we need. We need
100%.
a big voice, and we've just had, Jamie Foxx. We've had these celebrity figures that unfortunately have stroke and just no one comes out and says anything, right? So I think, ASA is in a really, not to say tough spot, but in a position where we're like, all right, how do we bring in these voices? And all right, if we had someone in the media or someone at, in the government who's had a stroke who's willing to say something, of course, let's give them the stage. What's really needed and what I'm excited to see building here, just even within the last 2 years of being a part of this committee is, the attention and the importance that, and Stephanie Mole has been the main driver here, the vice president of the ASA, to bring in more of the survivor's voice and not just, a celebrity or these big time people, but just, Stacey Quinn, for instance, right, who's going to be on a past guest. She's now part of this kind of Stroke Connections is what it's called. We piloted it last year in LA with a small group of like 20 survivors who are all local based. This year, they've gotten sponsorship from Bayer Pharmaceuticals, who's continuing to do great work, for the lived experience voice in Europe. They're doing a lot of things, but yeah, they've sponsored this program this year at ISC where they're bringing in 50 plus stroke survivors and caretakers from around the country to be a part of this day, and really kind of built out a whole program over the course of 2 days that, some survivors will actually be in sessions, kind of on stage, on panels, kind of discussing, impacts and kind of what their perspectives are as survivors or caretakers with clinicians. And I think that's really like the special sauce there, is being able to, have these conversations take place, and yeah, make survivors and caregivers feel like they're being heard, feel like they have a seat at the table. And I know we still have a long way to go to make that a true reality for all stroke survivors and caretakers. But I think this year is a big milestone, and unfortunately, it does come down to funding. Where we just, the ASA didn't have that previously, but now we've been fortunate to see Bayer step in, and this is a large sponsorship. They're flying out and putting up and paying for tickets, 55 people. So I mean, that's a lot of money. So not to say the ASA and AHA don't have that already, right? And I think that's kind of some of the the things that we're like, all right, why couldn't we have been doing this? But I think it's a multitude of things, and kind of being closer into the ASA on this advisory committee, you see, unfortunately, like how small a piece of the puzzle that the ASA is within the broader AHA, American Heart Association, in terms of like, budget and that. But I think there's a lot of work happening to prioritize brain health and, talk stroke broadly, and kind of, bring stroke almost, we want to equal to heart health, right? And like, how could we make that happen? It's going to take time, but I think this year is, an exciting opportunity to kind of continue to see that grow. So yeah, I'll definitely, be looking to, ask some survivors, caretakers from this program to come onto the show and can talk through their experience and what it meant. And then hopefully continue to build on this for next year.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think it's important too, Mike, that, and I'm glad this is happening this year on a bigger scale, because, for all my years in survivorship, this has been something that I've been told that is happening. It's happening. It's happening. Now we are seeing some traction, but I know this is a week away, and this might be a big ask, but I'm hoping that this isn't like a closed session, and like, it would be great if you had the ability to urge them to somehow make this scalable, or make what comes out of this particular session available for the stroke community at large, because the 50 folks that will be able to attend are being able to attend, probably unless they happen to be in New Orleans and can get through the door at a discount. They will be attending because they were there by invite. And the broader stroke community, and I probably would have stopped kind of pushing the pedal on this if, to your point earlier, is if we had another outlet and opportunity. Like early on, we talked early on, like stroke support survivors and caregivers need their own summit. And you mentioned like following a model, what happens in the EU, et cetera. But I've seen them try this even between the year that you mentioned, Senator keynoted. Then they tried a version of the Stroke Connection where they were trying to charge survivors to have recorded snippets of some of the breakout sessions that might be applicable. I attended a couple of them, but the folks that I've been meeting and talking to and presenting to, and I shared some of that data with you. I hope maybe you can bring it to the group when you have a chance. Like they want to know how to get involved in how to get some of this information that will come out of this joint collaboration with clinicians and caregivers and survivors. Like other than you and I maybe doing a recap, like if you pay to attend as a clinician for the virtual component of the conference, right away there could be a survivor component that maybe folks can pay for that could get brought back, even if it's after the fact, to some of these vital stroke support community organizations to say, hey, here's what's being worked on. Here's how you get involved.
Yeah, like a live stream element almost that people
Yeah.
could tune into. Yeah. And I think that's where, again, it goes back to like the funding, right? Like, how it's tough, I will say, like, unless everything's happening in one room and like, you could get a live stream in there. I think there's definitely a way to do it. And I do think that you're dead on, like that needs to, like, the conversations that happen need to be, outside of those four walls, allowed, people to be able to tune in and hear those conversations. So yeah, I think that's something, I'll definitely kind of bring up, and I'm sure others
Yeah.
in the room would agree with, right? It's like, yeah, we've been fortunate to, be selected as part of this group to go and attend, but yeah, there's a lot of other folks out there who want to be a part of it, and it's expensive to get out there, and
Yeah.
then the issue is as well, it's like, again, for you to go to this conference, David, like you could walk in and because you have a clinical background and, you've kind of been in this world, you could get around and, be interested and kind of understand what's going on. But it's a big, big, big conference and like very large conference centers. Like it's overwhelming. Like I remember
Yeah.
when I walked the
Yeah.
first one, there's so much going on and like, you don't know where to go, who to like, what, like where to find programming. So like
Yeah.
what's unique about this is like we're like there's a whole program designed for, this group, and we'll be kind of going into few sessions with clinicians and kind of doing the tour of the innovation hall and going through some of that stuff. But I think from my experience last year, like, and it just goes back to like anything you do and like peer-to-peer support and survivorship, like the most impactful and like what like I think the most like emotional aspect about that conference last year was during lunch when we had the 20 of us sitting around the table and we just kind of shared our stories and why we're here, like there were tears shed during that
Yeah.
lunch. And I think it's all right, yeah, you could go look at the latest shiny gadget coming out from a robotics company for upper arm rehab, but like again, it gets down to like the raw reality of like, hey, I'm meeting someone like me. I'm able to have a conversation. This person gets
Yeah.
it. And yeah, we're in this, shiny conference center and surrounded by international, like respected researchers and doctors. But like, this is what it's about. It's about connecting with peers.
Yeah. No, and I totally agree with everything you said. And to your point too, like I've been blessed to be at ISC 3 times, all in LA. And it's a big place. It's like the size of 3 football fields. So it's not accessible. Not only is the content not directed as the caregiver and survivor, but it's not accessible for someone with mobility or disability issues.
Right.
Like you would not be able, but on the flip side of that, the technology is there that, and I hope we get someone on that can kind of recap and you can relay to our community when you get back, or maybe do something live, like even to like hear Senator Ben Ray Lujan's keynote, which was motivating. There were some tears. There were people that were like, it was raw, it was real. We had our channels that we were actually be able to bring out that footage and was shared, but it wasn't like readily available even to folks who didn't have a professional membership with AHA to be able to actually log in and see that as in their learning library.
Yeah.
Again, it's like that part of it. And again, as we've said in the beginning, from the early days, it all comes down to being able to follow the money and have sponsorship to be able to do it. But I can tell you from the work that I've done behind the scenes, like the folks that are doing the most vital work are not, they're crying and they're begging for resources to trickle down to them. So maybe instead of looking every time for who's new that we could bring to speak, there could be a directed resource of new ideas in what's happening at the highest level that can benefit their communities they serve too. And I just hope we can continue the conversation around seeing this through.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, there definitely should be a way to have this be repurposed, and it's pretty
Right
simple.
away even.
The technology is not crazy.
Yeah. So more to come. But hopefully the response and the support from Bayer is enough that maybe it can be scaled next year, or maybe they can recognize that there could be more opportunities to grow this quicker than, and I say that quicker because it has been as long as I've been a survivor fighting this battle. And if there was, as I said, if there was something else, I'd say it'd be putting my energy into something else. But there isn't anything else right now here in the States that is an alternative.
Yeah, you're right. Well, yeah, thank you to Bayer. Thank you to Stephanie Mullen. Thank you to the survivors who've kind of pushed for this. And I think it's not the end all be all, but I think it's going to be the start of something special. And yeah, there's certainly more things to be done. So yeah, we'll kind of do it. We'll do a recap maybe of that in, a month or so as well, and be shooting for 100, David.
Let's do it. So if I promise, well, we shouldn't promise because anything can happen, but it's what we have scheduled, which is not going to be another 2 months before our next episode. But this is a recap to kind of let folks know that the microphones are still plugged in. We had to clean the dust off a little, but you'll be back probably. Recap. We'll probably have our next guest on, and then by the time you get, we don't have anything live planned that you have worked out for ISC.
We could probably do it, but no, I haven't planned for anything.
We can't. We don't have a crew that we could send to get. We can't be in the room with the group because we don't have the bandwidth and power. But I don't want you trying to creep up to get a live mic of the conference. But there is a lot of folks who would want that seat at the table, so we'll keep pushing for it.
No doubt. Yeah, well, we could see if we get a live mic in. I'll see what I could do.
All right.
Cool. Well, it's good to get it back on. And again, kind of to what we started the episode with, make sure everyone's taking a moment to decompress and stay tuned to what's happening. But
absolutely,
make sure you're taking care of your mental.
Absolutely. And if if this resonates and you want to send us a fan mail, I do like the fan mails that come in on our site. You can hit the chime in text link right at the top of show notes in every episode, and you can get connected to us or reach out to us on our website as well. So, all right. I think that's it, Mike, signing off. This has been episode 89 of the No Stroke Podcast. We'll be back, maybe live or recorded from ISC. You will, Mike.
All right, Jeff. Take care.
Take care.